The mask itched against Hammer's face. She tried pushing it around, wrinkling her nose and blinking her eyes, but it only made the spot itch more. She'd spent so long in the damp that her skin had softened, and every rub of the mask against her cheek was a blister waiting to happen. No, it wasn't the sweat. She'd spent a lifetime fighting in this mask. Perspiration was as natural as breathing. The difference tonight was the rain. If the Viridian convoy had arrived on time, her black uniform wouldn't be clinging to her back, her feet numb from the wet and cold. Blisters on her face were fine, but on her heels? That was going to be a week of shitty walking right there, and she wasn't going to spend her remaining scripts on bandages. It was such drab weather that even the crickets had stopped chirping. On the non-rainy days, and there weren't that many, the insects of the night sang so loud that you could barely hear yourself speak on the road. Not that sound was the problem. The region surrounding Sinchuha was so humid that the unfamiliar would have melted in their own sweaty heat first before thinking that crickets were their most pressing issue. She flicked water off the rattan palm she hid behind, its long, slender leaves rustling from the force. Through the mask and branches and darkness, she could just make out the winding path, so slick with mud that it shone under the filtered moonlight. Tall hills flanked this road, a natural protection, their slopes too steep for any yak or horse to climb. Even the ibexes didn't bother. Her bed stove in Sinchuha would have been perfectly toasty by now. She'd lit a fire under the clay platform before she'd left, hoping to be back before moonrise. But whenever the clouds parted, the full moon flashed its bright round ass, laughing at her for staying out. The bit of charcoal she'd bought with her scripts would have burnt out by now, and her bed grew colder every moment she spent here. Outside, in the rain, no warm bed and a wet piece of plaster stuck on her face. What a great night. The mask especially irritated her. The eye holes were too narrow, and whenever she looked up or down, some part of her sight would be blocked by her mask. You'd think whichever lackey had made these uniforms would have given some thought to the fact that fighting required the fighter to, see. But this was the nature of the faceless. When they fought, no one knew their faces or names. To the enemy, they were a singular entity, eternally regenerating and never ceasing. To her right crouched another faceless. She didn't know him, and she didn't care. Any additional body meant more people getting in her way rather than fulfilling the mission at hand. Crescent hadn't moved since they'd taken position behind the copse. He, too, wore a mask like hers, painted black for camouflage, the sculpted grinning mouth and smiling eyes concealing his true mood. Maybe he was sleeping. Good. She could finish the job on her own. The lumbering creak of the wagon announced the convoy's approach. The Viridian's empire's love for steel armor was both their strength and weakness. They lumbered forth in elaborately interlocked plates of mountain-shaped scales sewn on leather vests and skirts, while layered on top of that was mirrored armor, circular discs and rectangular plates linked together with even more chain, strapped to their chests and thighs.